They called it a joke, a floating coffin. Some even called it Earth's embarrassment. When the Terran Alliance unveiled TSV Daggerfall, the galaxy laughed. No fancy graviton shields, no phased plasma rail guns, no sleek serpent-like design like the Allari dreadnoughts or Vaughn stealth carriers, just a thick, ugly beast of steel, bolted together like someone built it in a scrapyard. Even Earth's own command didn't take it seriously. But Commander Jace Rennick did. Jace wasn't like other fleet officers. He didn't rise through the ranks with politics or connections. He was a soldier, born and forged in fire, a former ground marine, survivor of the siege of Andros. They said he was too blunt, too reckless, too attached to the past. But Jace had seen what modern war had done to Earth, how sleek ships and smart tech had failed when brute force was needed. He believed in grit. He believed in legacy. And he believed in the Daggerfall, even when no one else did. The ship itself was a relic, made from the old titanium carbon frame of a pre-Federation battleship. It had been retrofitted a dozen times over. Nothing about it screamed advanced, except for one thing, its power core. The Daggerfall ran on a modified energy drive salvaged from an alien vessel that crash-landed during the Silent War. Engineers had tried to reverse engineer it for years and failed. It wasn't compatible with most systems, it glitched, pulsed, and once nearly tore a lab apart. But Jace pushed to install it anyway, and they let him, mostly because no one else wanted the ship. When the Vaughn Imperium invaded, they didn't even bother scanning for the Daggerfall. It was posted near the outer belt of Sector 9, guarding a mining station nobody cared about. Earth's fleet collapsed in a matter of days, entire battalions erased. The Terran capital was under threat. The call went out for all viable ships to fall back to Vega Prime to make a final stand. Daggerfall wasn't called. It was an afterthought. But Jace Rennick didn't need orders. He stood before his crew, all 143 of them, half of them barely out of training, and told them the truth, Earth was dying. The Vaughn weren't just invading, they were exterminating. And if they didn't do something, Vega Prime would fall, and with it, the last hope of humanity's survival. Most captains would have told their crew to flee. Jace didn't. He asked for volunteers. All of them stayed. They ran the old core hot, stripped down the non-essential systems, boosted the remaining guns with unstable plasma infusers. The ship groaned and sparked the entire time, but it held. Daggerfall had been called many things, but never a coward. And neither was its captain. When they arrived at Vega Prime, the battlefield was already burning. Earth's finest ships were getting slaughtered. The Vaughn fleet moved like ghosts, silent, fast, merciless. Daggerfall dropped out of warp into the middle of it all. The enemy ignored her, their scanners barely registered the ship's presence, outdated, unarmed, non-threat. Those were the tags in the Vaughn targeting data. Jace grinned when he heard that. He walked onto the bridge, strapped into the captain's chair, and looked at his tactical officer. Initiate Ember Protocol. No one said a word. No one had to. Ember Protocol wasn't officially logged. It wasn't sanctioned. It was something Jace and a blacklisted Earth engineer named Oswin Hale had cooked up in secret, something born from dozens of failed tests and sleepless nights. It involved pushing the alien energy core to its absolute limit, past safety, past logic, past everything. The core lit up. Daggerfall's ugly steel exterior began to glow red, veins pulsing like blood under skin. For a moment, it looked alive. Then came the silence. And then annihilation. It was like a god had exhaled. A shockwave burst out, invisible, clean, surgical. It bypassed shields, crashed guidance systems, fried weapon arrays. Vaughn ships began to implode, one after the other, silent explosions in the vacuum of space like stars blinking out. 30 enemy vessels were reduced to nothing in under 90 seconds. The humans on the ground saw it first. They looked up expecting death, and saw salvation. The fleet couldn't believe it. Jace stood there on the bridge, lit by emergency lights. Chest rising and falling calm as the grave. They should have taken us seriously. From that moment on, they did. And humanity had just announced, with blood and fire, that it wasn't going anywhere. The silence that followed the annihilation of the Vaughn fleet was unreal. Space, usually a sea of overlapping calm chatter, battlefield screams, and alerts, had gone quiet. It wasn't just the enemy who went silent. Earth's forces, still licking their wounds and trying to regroup, froze too. They couldn't process what they just witnessed. The TSV Daggerfall, that rust-covered hulk nobody took seriously, was now hovering among the shredded remains of a fleet that had humiliated Earth's best. Burnt Vaughn hulls drifted like twisted metal corpses across the blackness. Their elegant warships were turned into junk in under 2 minutes. And all of it had come from that forgotten ship with a power core no one understood. Inside the bridge of the Daggerfall, Commander Jace Rennick stood from his chair slowly. His knuckles were white from gripping the armrests during the blast, and the emergency lights bathed the bridge in red pulses. It wasn't dramatic flair, it was necessity. The ship had suffered minor damage from its own energy surge. Some of the circuits had fried. The alien core was humming like a beast that had just tasted blood and wanted more. Jace turned to his second-in-command, Lieutenant Nora Hale, a wiry woman with sharp eyes and a sharper mind. "Report," he said, voice calm but low, like someone who knew the battle wasn't really over. She tapped away at her cracked console. "Hull integrity at 83%. Core output stabilizing. We've lost minor external plating near the portside thrusters. Casualties: 1 Ensign Cole took a hit from a blown relay panel in engineering. Status: alive, shaken. Doc's got him in medbay, nothing fatal." Jace nodded. "Good." Behind them, the crew remained still, like they weren't sure if they were supposed to celebrate or brace for round 2. They had been ready to die, but no one had been ready to win, like this. Not like gods. Not like the monsters in enemy nightmares. The comms officer, Ramirez, finally broke the tension. "Sir, we're getting a signal. It's the Resolute. Admiral Wesson wants a secure line, audio and vid. Patch him through." A few seconds later, the main bridge screen flickered and came to life. Admiral Gas Wesson's face filled the display, even with a deep gash across his forehead and smoke curling around him from the still-burning bridge of the Resolute. His expression held authority, but his eyes showed something else, shock, and maybe even fear. "Commander Rennick," he said, "what the hell just happened?" Jace didn't blink. "We neutralized the enemy fleet, sir." Wesson leaned forward, squinting at the screen. "Neutralized? You wiped out a Vaughn Armada in less than 2 minutes with a decommissioned battleship and a prototype drive that was declared unstable and unsafe for field use." "Unstable?" "Yes. Unsafe?" "Not today." Wesson didn't laugh. He just sat back in his chair and exhaled slowly. "The Federation's going to lose their minds when they hear about this." "Let them," Jace replied. "Maybe it's time they remember humans aren't as helpless as we look." The screen went dark without ceremony. Jace turned back to his crew. "Begin recovery protocols," he ordered. "Scan for life pods, survivors, data cores, anything we can salvage. And tell engineering I want a full report on the core's condition in the next 30 minutes. "Yes, sir," Nora replied, already moving. As the crew got to work, Jace left the bridge and made his way to the observation deck. The hallway lights flickered overhead, and the floor occasionally shuddered as the ship systems tried to stabilize. The Daggerfall groaned like a tired old dog that had just won a fight but wasn't sure if it would survive the celebration. The observation deck was small, barely more than a viewing chamber with reinforced glass walls that looked out into the stars. Jace stood alone, staring at the wreckage outside. Fragments of enemy ships floated like frozen confetti, tumbling in slow motion. Fires still burned in the distance, blue and red, like fireworks in a vacuum. It was beautiful. And it was horrifying. The door hissed open behind him. He didn't need to look. You ever think we'd make it out of this alive? Lieutenant Nora Hale stepped beside him, arms crossed over her chest. I thought we'd go out swinging. That's all I expected. But this. She shook her head. This isn't war. It's slaughter. They started it, and we just finished it. Jace didn't answer. The alien core still hummed beneath the ship, deep and rhythmic, like a living thing breathing under the floorboards. It didn't speak. It didn't glow. It just pulsed, a heartbeat made of energy, older than any human technology. I need to ask, Nora said, how long have you known it would work? Jace finally looked at her honestly. I didn't. Not for sure. I knew it could. I knew what Hale designed it to do. But no one's ever pushed it that far before. That's why I didn't log the protocol. Command would have shut it down. She nodded slowly, processing. You gambled. He turned back to the window. I gambled the enemy would underestimate us. I gambled that this ship, this crew, would hold together when no one believed in us. I gambled that sometimes all you need is one ugly, stubborn piece of junk with the right monster inside. There was a pause. You were right. A soft chime interrupted them. It came from Nora's wrist console. She tapped it, then frowned. What is it? Jace asked. We've got incoming ships, 5 of them. Federation transponders. Heavy carriers and 2 diplomats. Jace raised an eyebrow. Diplomats already? Looks like they want to debrief you. Of course they do, he thought. Now that the ship was no longer an embarrassment but a miracle, they'd come crawling back to claim it. Let them dock, he said. But scan them. I don't trust them. Nora hesitated, then nodded. You think they're here to shut us down? No, he said. Worse. I think they're here to take credit. An hour later, in the Daggerfall's lower hangar, the Federation delegates arrived with suits so clean they looked untouched by war. The lead ambassador was a smug-faced Ari hybrid named Quenv, a bureaucrat known for backroom deals and talking circles around his own shadow. He smiled like he was doing Jace a favor just by being there. Commander Rennick greeted him, stepping forward with hands outstretched. A miracle. An absolute miracle. You've made history. I didn't do it for history, Jace replied, not taking the offered hand. Of course not, V said smoothly, withdrawing without flinching. You did it for humanity. For survival. But still, this changes everything. Jace stayed silent. The ambassador's eyes flicked toward the core of the ship, as if he could sense the heartbeat buried deep within. We'll need full diagnostics, of course. A transfer of logs. And we'll be arranging immediate relocation of the core for testing and analysis. No, V blinked. I'm sorry. Jace stepped forward. The core stays here. With my ship. With my crew. Until the war's over. That's not your call. Commander, it is. Jace said coldly, until I'm relieved of duty, this ship remains under my command. And this core is the only reason Vega Prime still exists. You want to study it? Fine. Send your scientists. But it doesn't leave my ship. The hangar fell silent. V smiled again, but this time it was thinner, more forced. You're playing a dangerous game. No, Jace replied. I already played it. And I won. Back on the bridge, Jace watched from the main screen as the wreckage of the Vaughn fleet continued to drift. His fingers hovered over the console as reports flooded in, salvage complete, survivors found, Vaughn tech being logged. But he didn't feel victorious. He felt something worse. Because deep inside he knew that the Vaughn weren't done. This wasn't their full force. It was a test strike. And now they'd come harder, smarter, angrier. But they'd remember this day. And they'd remember this ship. The war wasn't over. It was just getting started. 3 days had passed since the destruction of the Vaughn fleet, but TSV Daggerfall hadn't seen a moment of rest. While the galaxy buzzed with stories of a miraculous human counterstrike, Jace Rennick knew better. It wasn't a miracle. It was desperation, cunning, and a ship powered by something humanity barely understood. Outside, Vega Prime had begun repairs, its cities blackened and scarred by orbital strikes. 10 million lives had barely survived the assault, and yet most of the galaxy's attention wasn't on them. It was on the ship that had saved them. Jace didn't need a press release to know how it was playing out. He imagined the headlines. Earth's ghost ship returns with godlike firepower. Rust and ruin, how a decommissioned warship became humanity's savior. One man. One ship. One massacre. But it wasn't just the press. The vultures had arrived too, Federation officers, science teams, politicians in clean uniforms. They roamed the Daggerfall now, taking readings, poking into classified files, whispering to each other in corners like they were already planning to carve up the ship for spare parts once Jace was out of the way. He watched them from the upper catwalk of engineering, arms crossed, jaw clenched. The alien energy core pulsed in its containment chamber, a faint thrum vibrating through the steel floor like the hum of a sleeping beast. Federation scientists walked around it in silence, like priests before an altar, afraid to touch it but eager to claim it. You planning on growling them away, or should I release the fire suppression system by accident? Lieutenant Nora Hale said from behind him. Jace didn't turn. How many of them are on board now? 16. 4 are military science division. The rest are civilian contractors, all armed with clearance from Federation High Command. Clearance means nothing if the ship refuses to cooperate. You planning to sabotage your own ship? He looked over his shoulder, finally, a shadow of a smirk on his face. Number, just reminding the universe that this ship's loyalty doesn't transfer with a signature. She stepped beside him, resting her hands on the railing. I've been going through the data logs from the Ember Burst. It wasn't just the Vaughn ships that were affected. There were residual waves, some kind of echo in subspace. The core may have sent out a signal. Jace stiffened. A signal? She nodded. We don't know who or what might have heard it. The timing couldn't have been worse. Later that evening, as Jace sat alone in the officers' mess, sifting through more reports, a high-priority transmission came through. The encryption code was Terran Black Level, only admirals used it. He slid the tablet across the table and activated the line. Admiral Gas Wesson appeared, his face drawn and pale, but this time not from combat stress. This was political pressure. Commander Rennick, he began, his voice hard, you've been ordered to report to Arxis Prime for debriefing in person. Jace leaned back in his chair. Why? Classified review of your ship's engagement with the Vaughn. Full testimony. They want to see you. They already sent their dogs on board. What else do they need? Wesson didn't flinch. You've embarrassed a lot of people. Half the brass called the Daggerfall a junk project. They shut down its funding years ago. Now you've made it the most powerful warship in human space. I didn't do it for them. No, you didn't. And that's exactly why they want you out of the way. There was a beat of silence between them. What are you not telling me? Jace asked. Wesson hesitated, then said, we intercepted a partial Vaughn transmission 2 hours ago, fragmented but enough to translate one line. It said, Protocol Echo has awakened the Harbinger lives. Jace's spine straightened. You think they meant the core? He asked. I don't know what they meant, Wesson said, but I know this, whatever you activated on that ship, it didn't just destroy them, it frightened them. And the Vaughn don't scare easy. The shuttle to Arxis Prime left the next morning with Jace aboard, and command was temporarily transferred to Lieutenant Hale. He hated it. Hated leaving his ship. Hated the feel of the sterile Federation transport. Hated the taste of politics that was thick in every word they'd used to request his presence. Arxis Prime was the Federation's central hub, a planet built to shine, filled with glass towers, military bases, and marble government halls designed to make even gods feel small. They led Jace through polished corridors like he was a suspect, not a hero. The hearing chamber was circular, its domed ceiling painted with the Federation seal. Around the perimeter sat 12 high-ranking officials, most of them admirals, 2 scientists, and 1 cold-eyed woman in a crimson sash, the head of Terran intelligence. Commander Rennick. She said without warmth, "Thank you for joining us. I wasn't given much of a choice. We're here to understand the events surrounding the use of the alien core aboard the Daggerfall. What we do not want are dramatics, half-truths, or unauthorized opinions." Jace leaned forward slightly. "You want the truth? Or the version that makes you all look competent?" A few gasps. One chuckle, quickly silenced. The woman's eyes narrowed. "Begin with your decision to activate an untested protocol." So Jace told them everything. He walked them through Ember Protocol, the state of Earth's fleet at the time, the emergency at Vega Prime, and the tactical choice to unleash the core's full potential. He didn't sugarcoat it. He told them what they didn't want to hear, that no one had given him permission, that he had gambled Earth's last miracle on a half-functional drive powered by alien tech Earth still didn't understand. When he finished, the room was dead silent. One of the admirals finally cleared his throat. "Commander, do you understand what you've done? If the Vaughn believe we possess more weapons like the Daggerfall, it could escalate this war." Jace's eyes narrowed. "You're worried they'll attack harder? They were already burning our colonies to ash." The intelligence director spoke next. "And if what you've awakened draws something else to us, something worse, then I'd rather face it with the Daggerfall than without." There was a long, heavy political pause. Finally, the chair of the tribunal said, "Your actions were reckless and insubordinate, but effective. You will return to your ship, but you will be accompanied by a special delegation of Federation engineers and intelligence personnel who will begin immediate study and preparation for core extraction." Jace's blood ran cold. "You want to remove the core? It's no longer your concern, Commander." He stood. "You remove that core, and the Daggerfall is just a coffin with engines. You want another Vega Prime?" They ignored him. Dismissed him. Hours later, back aboard the Daggerfall, Jace walked into his quarters to find Nora waiting. "How bad?" she asked. "They're gutting her. Turning the ship into a museum piece. They don't understand it. They never will." Jace sat heavily on the edge of his bunk. "We need to buy time." "For what?" "For whatever's coming next." She was quiet for a long moment, then handed him a data pad. Long-range scans picked up something odd, a Vaughn scout ship, just sitting. Not moving, not scanning. Just waiting. Waiting for what? She looked at him, and she didn't have to say it for him. The Vaughn scout ship hadn't moved in over 30 hours. It sat in the dead of space like a watching eye, cold, patient, and silent. No transmissions. No weapons powered. Just a silent sentinel on the edge of the Denevar expanse. Far enough to avoid sensor detection from most Federation scanners, but close enough to feel like a threat to the Daggerfall's crew. Commander Jace Rennick stood on the command deck, arms behind his back, staring at the image frozen on the main screen. The Vaughn ship was smaller than a cruiser, but large enough to carry a crew, a standard recon vessel, usually deployed in packs. The fact that it was alone didn't sit right with him. "They're watching," Lieutenant Hale said beside him, eyes locked on the tactical readouts. "But they're not scanning. Not moving. Like they're waiting for something." Jace didn't answer right away. He watched the static image unmoving, trying to feel it out, the way soldiers did with danger. "They're not waiting for something," he said finally. "They're waiting for someone. You." He nodded slowly. The crew around them worked silently. The atmosphere on the bridge had shifted in the last day, not fear, not yet, but unease, the kind of quiet that sets in just before a storm hits. They'd all seen what the Daggerfall had done. They'd all felt it. The pulse of the alien core that had wiped out the Vaughn fleet still echoed in the bones of the ship. Some said the hum never went away, even when the engines were off. It still whispered through the bulkheads like it had a mind of its own. And now, whatever signal it had sent, whatever pulse had gone out with that energy surge, was drawing attention. Jace turned to Nora. "Do we have communication relays in range of the scout ship?" "Just barely. It's outside standard bandwidth, but we can piggyback on the old mining array from the Denivar station." "Do it. I want to send a message." She raised an eyebrow. "You think they'll respond?" "I think they've been waiting to." She gave the order. Moments later, the screen flickered. Jace leaned over the console, recording a message directly. "This is Commander Jace Rennick of the TSV Daggerfall. I know you're listening. You didn't come here to spy. You came for a reason. Say what you came to say." They sent it and waited. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. Then 35. Then the screen lit up. But it wasn't a Vaughn face that greeted them. It wasn't a face at all. The transmission was black, save for faint green lines shifting like smoke across a digital field. A voice came through, mechanical, low, and layered with distortion, as if several voices spoke at once. "You do not understand what you carry." Jace narrowed his eyes. "Then explain it." "The core is not a weapon. It is a beacon. A marker of extinction. It was not meant to be awakened." "Then why was it in your wreckage? Why did you leave it behind?" Silence. "We did not leave it. It was taken." Jace looked at Nora, then back to the screen. "Then take it back." The voice's tone didn't change, but the silence afterward felt heavier. "We cannot. Not without burning your world to the ground." The transmission ended. The bridge was silent. "What the hell does that mean?" Nora whispered. Jace turned slowly to his crew. "It means this isn't over. Not by a long shot.